Hello, everybody. May peace and power elevation be to all of you. This your girl Tiffany coming through live in effect. So, as you can see, today's topic, we're going to be dealing with an African American sociologist named E. Franklin Frazier. So, E. Franklin Frazier was an African American sociologist during the 1920s and the 30s, 40s. All right. He studied African American families, especially those that were in a low income community. He written several books with regard to African Americans and those in the socioeconomics. So we're going to talk about his history and his life and what he had dedicated, and from there, and that's that. So that's all for today. So all right then. Let's go ahead and get started. So this is E. Franklin Frazier, as you can see. So I'm gonna go into his biography as far as who he is. So right here, I'm on the Wikipedia source. Okay. And the reason why I use Wikipedia because a lot of people go to this website and find a lot of information, especially when they want to come across something that's been outdated or whatnot. So it's more accessible to use Wikipedia. If you can't go to no other sources, you can use this website and then look for the references at the bottom of the page. So who was Edward Franklin Frazier? All right, as I said before, he was a sociologist and an author, published as E. Franklin Frazier. In his 1932 PhD dissertation was published as a book titled The Negro Family in the United States in 1939. It analyzed the historical forces that influenced the development of the African American family from the time of slavery to the mid-1930s. The book was awarded the 1940 Ashfield Wolf Book Award for the most significant work in the field of race relation. Okay, it was among the first sociological works on Black research and written by a Black person. In 1948, Frazier was elected as the first Black president of the American Sociological Association. He published numerous other books and articles on African American cultures and race relation. In 1950, Frazier helped draft the UNESCO statement, The Race Question. Frazier wrote a dozen books in his lifetime, including The Black Bourgeoisie, a critique of the Black middle class in which he questioned the effectiveness of African American businesses to produce racial equality. All right, so now let's go down to his published work real quick. All right, so these are the books he published. One is called The Negro Family, The Negro Family in Chicago, The Negro Family in the United States, Negro Youth at the Crossways, The Personality Development in the Middle State, The Negro Family in Baja, Brazil, The Negro Family in the United States. The Negro in the United States, the integration of the Negro into American society, bourgeoisie noir, which means black bougie, black bourgeoisie, race and culture context in the middle modern world, the Negro Church in America, and on race relations selecting writings. So that's the list of work that he has done. All right. So let's also look at another information that goes more into his biography. All right. So right here, here's a journal. Okay. So the journal is called The Journal of Negro Education, which is a story by E. Franklin Frazier, written by Arthur P. Davis, the professor of English, Howard University, and was written in fall of 1962. All right, to start off, it says, the late E. Franklin Frazier, professor of sociology at Howard University. Okay, let me try to zoom this up. Okay. The late E. Franklin Frazier, professor of sociology at Howard University, was certainly not a proper Negro. He was the author of 7 full-length works and 108 published articles, pamphlets, and chapters in the works of other scholars, most of them dealing with the Negro in America. His teaching experience ran the government from the Baltimore Public Schools to visiting professorship at New York University, the University of California, Sarah Lawrence. He lectured at Johns Hopkins, the School of Advanced International Studies, the University of London, Edinburgh, and Liverpool, and was one of very few Americans to deliver the Sir James Frazier Lecture in Anthropology. Dr. Frazier conducted research projects in Brazil, Denmark, Haiti, Israel, the West Indies, and Africa. He was chief of the Division of Applied Sciences, Department of Social Sciences, UNESCO, and he was president of the American Sociological Society, the only Negro to have that honor, and the first Negro in America to head a national scholarly organization. Professor Frazier had a very colorful and distinguished career, but he was always a nonconformist, a protester, a a glaffi. In fact, to use the word as the citation uses it, it would be difficult to find a more improper Negro than E. Franklin Frazier. All right, Frazier spent a great part of his life fighting three things: American racial injustice, the Negroes' reluctance to measure up to national standards, and the shallowness, pretensions, and false ideas of the black middle class. It says during his long academic career, he had one overall aim: to tell the truth about the racial matters in America. Objective, aggressive, anaconalistic. On occasion, he attacked chauvinist and foolishness, his favorite word, wherever he found them. Many Negroes in public life tend to risk condemnation from either the white or the black world. But Frazier played no games with either world. Early in his career, he was run out of Atlanta for an article he wrote on Southern whites. He was lynched, quote unquote, in the Negro press for his black bourgeoisie. Whatever else Whatever else he may have been, he was always an honest, forthright, and hard-hitting defender of things in which he believed. So, based on that article alone, E. Franklin Frazier was not a house nigga. Let's just put that all in translation. He was no house nigga. He was not tolerating no bullshit. All right. He was straight to the facts. He did not beat around the bush. He stood on his position, and he let it be known where he gonna stand, and he didn't care if anybody did not like it or not. All right. So according to that article, he was not one of those uppity type of Negroes or uppity type of black person. He was more so down to earth, and he was letting it to be known. Give me one moment, you guys. All right, you guys. I'm sorry about that. I had to take care of an important phone call. So, but anyways, getting back to the article. Okay, getting back to the article. So, what was I saying? Yeah. So basically, E. Franklin Frazier was just a regular black man who happened to be educated. He was no different from Dr. Robert Lee Williams, the guy that started the Bish test. He was no different from him. He was, let's just say, Dr. Robert Lee Williams will be that version of E. Franklin Frazier. That's what he would be, basically. So he was not taking no BS. You know what I'm saying? So you couldn't try to get him to conform to others' ideas. So he was very pro-black. That was Dr. Frazier. Dr. Frazier was a pro-black person. Okay, let's see something. All right, so let's go ahead and let's get to his biography. All right. So I'm gonna get to his biography because that's important. So E. Franklin Frazier was born in Baltimore, Maryland, September 24th of 1894, the son of James Edward and Mary Clark Frazier. The elder Frazier was a bank messenger, and though he never attended school, he had taught himself to read and write. Okay. Moreover, he had an almost religious faith in the importance of education. At the nightly family gatherings, which took place after supper, he never tired of pointing out to his children that they could avoid the kind of humiliation he occasionally endured by getting an education. Like his son, the elder Frazier was a protester. He was an inveterate writer of letters to the editor of the Baltimore dailies. Frazier's own militant character was formed in large measure, he believed, by the example and the indoctrination of his father. Okay. So actually, he learned it from his dad. And it says Professor Frazier was a product of Baltimore's public school, always a bright lad. He finished grammar school at the head of his class and received for this achievement a copy of William Shakespeare the first of a long line of honors. Okay. And awards to follow. He finished high school as third in his class. Two girls who majored in domestic science got higher grades, but he was given the scholarship to Howard University, which the high school awarded annually to its best graduate. All right. It says Howard opened up a new world to young Frazier, and he entered fully into it. He was a member of the drama group, a member of the International Socialist Society, president of both the German and political science clubs of the teachers at Howard. Then he was most impressed by those who used his words were firm and precise. Men like David Houston in English, George M. Lightfoot in Latin, E.P. Davis in Greek, and Carl Murphy in German. All right. Now, let's go ahead and skip down. It says, after receiving his AB in 1916, Frazier went to Tuskegee to teach mathematics. Although educated in liberal arts tradition, he approved the Tuskegee idea of adapting the curriculum of the school to needs of the Southern Negro. He felt, however, that by the time he got there, the original idea had become an inefficient formula. Moreover, he resented the school's tendency to cater too much, as he thought, to the wishes of the white South. All right. And so let's go ahead. I had to skip some of this stuff down because there's a lot of information. Okay. Now it says at the end of that year, the young instructor left Tuskegee, taught summer school at Fort Valley High School and industrial school and the following fall joined the staff at the St. Paul's Normal and Industrial School, where he taught English and history. From St. Paul's, he returned in 1918 to Baltimore to teach mathematics and French in the high school there. In his later years, Frazier used to claim with pride that he had taught in practically every kind of school that Negroes had: private, state, church-related, and public. Moreover, he had taught not only sociology and social work, but English, history, French, and mathematics as well. His experience gave him an intimate and first-hand knowledge of Negro education. And when he criticized Negro schools, as he often did, he spoke with authority. All right. And it says, after taking an AM degree in sociology at Clark University, which is Rochester, Massachusetts, in 1920, Frazier became a research fellow in the New York School of Social Work. The following year, he was elected fellow of the American Scandinavian Foundation to Denmark to study folk high school. Because he was their first Negro candidate, the election committee stayed up all night before finding the courage to make the appointment. Frazier worked that year more than justified their courage in electing him. All right. So, as you can see, E. Franklin Frazier traveled to European countries such as Denmark and started teaching English over there in their country. And he happened to be the first African American they had on board to do so. So let's go ahead. Let's continue. All right. All right, so it says down here, Frazier returned from Denmark with $9 in his pocket. Knowing that he had to find work right away, he got in touch with his friend, W.A. Robinson, who was then in the state educational work in North Carolina. Robinson not only secured him a position as director of summer school at Livingstone College, Salisbury, North Carolina, but also introduced him to future Mrs. Frazier, Marie Ellen Brown, the daughter of a distinguished Baptist leader in North Carolina. After a very brief courtship, Miss Brown and Frazier were married in 1922. It was a fortunate union in every sense of the word. The Fraziers had no children of their own, but their homes in Washington and Highland Beach, Maryland, particularly the latter, usually had one or more of Mrs. Frazier, numerous nieces and nephews. For those persons, and there were some, who thought of Dr. Frazier as a gruff and unapproachable character, it would have been a revelation to see him in the role of Uncle Ed, surrounded by his young relatives. All right. And then it says, in the fall of 1922, Frazier went to Morehouse College as an instructor in sociology and director of the Atlanta School of Social Work. Although he did not found the Atlanta School of Social Work, he did a yeoman and pioneer job of building up the institution and making it standard. The matter of standards had not been important prior to his directorship. It was thought that a Negro social worker needed the right attitude much more than he needed academic preparation. The school was therefore inclined to take almost anybody who applied, but the young director insisted on standards, and he traveled throughout the South selling the idea of an inadequate trained social worker. All right. So let's see, what else can we do? We're going to go ahead and skip on some more paragraphs. All right. So it says from Atlanta, Professor Frazier moved to the University of Chicago, where from 1927 to 1929, he was a research assistant in the Department of Sociology. All right. He always had a warm spot in his heart for the University of Chicago. There, he found the kind of academic challenge he admired and came to know and to be known by some of the nation's best sociologists. He also found there the intellectual bigness which he felt should characterize all institutions of higher learning. Okay, in 1929, Frazier decided to leave Chicago and go to Fisk University as special lecturer in sociology. After he received his doctorate from Chicago in 1931, he became research professor of sociology. He gave up Chicago for Fisk because he wanted to use the latter institution as a base for further study of the family in the South. He was not, however, entirely happy at Fisk. He did not receive, he felt, the fullest possible cooperation from his colleagues there. Moreover, he believed that Fisk at that time was too respectably middle class in its outlook, and because of this attitude, the school tended to shy away from certain important issues. He therefore considered it his duty to force these issues whenever possible. For example, when Juliet Darricott, the dean of women at Fisk at the time, lost her life because of a Southern white hospital refused her first aid after a car accident, the president of Fisk ordered his faculty not to discuss the incident. Frazier defied the order. Not only did he discuss it in his classes, but wrote strong letters to the press execrating the inhumanity of the act. In 1934, Frazier came to Howard as a professor and head of the Department of Sociology. It was a propitious time for him to return to his alma mater. In the 1930s, Howard had brought together a group of brilliant young Negro intellectuals, a group that gave the university an academic and intellectual climate that no other Negro school had. These young scholars, like Frazier, were nonconformists and gladifieds. They needed the administration on occasion, but they helped to make Howard into a modern educational center. Frazier became a very active and influential member of this group, but he was never a blind follower of any one camp, and he criticized his colleagues as readily as he criticized deans and presidents. I am not polite. He used to say, when my colleagues do things that are foolish, I speak out. So, as you can see, he was very vocal about everything. He wasn't going to take anything. He was zero tolerant. He was like Dr. Amos Wilson, who was very vocal and who used to speak out on a lot of stuff. All right. Now, here it is. Check this out. Frazier, for instance, was among the first at Howard to see the importance of African studies. And long before the subject had become popular, he worked to have such courses put in the curriculum, right? The African program now at Howard, though not his work alone, owes a great deal to his knowledge and vision. Although he used to say, I have no illusion about myself as an Africanist. He was highly respected in the field. When he died, he was first vice president of the African Studies Association in the United States. In all probability, he would have been elected president in 1963. All right. So let's go further down to later on in his life. All right. So Professor Frazier, outstanding scholarly production are The Negro Family in Chicago, The Negro Family, the United States, and The Negro in the United States. French critics consider the first of these his best work. It is used for courses in methodology at the University of Paris. The Negro Family in the United States received in the 1940 the John Ashfield Award for the soundest and most significant book on the subject of race relation in the contemporary world, published in that year. Frazier was proud of his two works on the family. He believed that his study of the subject broke away from the conventional approach and emphasized other aspects of the family: economic, political, religious, as well as social. He tried to write not the history of the family, but the natural history, a conceptualized showing stages in the growth of the family unit. The Annals of the American Academy of Political and Social Science, right, called The Negro Family in the United States a most important contribution to the literature on the family. All right. It says the United States is a scholarly and complete survey of the Negro in America from his first appearance here down to the present. The Library Journal considered this work more up to date and factual than American Dilemma, far wider in scope than Black metropolis, and quite worthy to stand beside these two classics in the field. Other reviews refer to the work's sound scholarships, its overwhelming mass of data, its exhaustive classified bibliography, and its uniqueness of approach. The consensus of most critics, it is a monumental work of scholarship. Well, let me stop right there. So it takes a lot of scholarship and a lot of research to come up with valuable information, right? So research can take a while. It can take months. It could take years, depending on what the subject is. So, and then a lot of this require field research, meaning that you actually go out and you do surveys, you interview people, you're doing census, which is like counting the population of a specific group. You do a lot of work. It could be very tedious and it could be overwhelming. And then if you're trying to get a doctoral degree, especially, you got to be on point of doing field research. If not, it's not going to work. And that's that. Okay. All right. So okay. So let's go on a little bit further. All right, so here it is. Okay, the most controversial work he produced was Black Bourgeoisie, a work in which he castigated the Negro middle class. Frazier enjoyed writing Black Bourgeoisie, enjoying recounting the many reaction to it he received from scholars and friends, enjoyed even the many critical brickbats hurled at him because of it. Just before he died, Frazier had written an introduction to the forthcoming paperback edition of the work. The public will find this introduction almost as fascinating as the book itself. Okay. E. Franklin Frazier was a many-sided character, a man of startling contrast. Often irrescribable, he could be easily aroused to anger by even the slightest suggestion of disagreement, and yet he was fundamentally a warm-hearted and kindly man. All right. And it says, after he published Black Bourgeoisie, one of his friends complained to him, Ed Frazier, why do you write all this stuff about us black middle class folk when you do the same things? You are quite right, said Frazier. That is why I write so truthfully about such things. I am a Black bourgeoisie. Okay. He said, a man of firm conviction and a born fighter, Frazier feared neither Mrs. Gruntley nor the FBI. He went to jail in New York in 1920 for picketing the birth of a nation. Although he was a strong believer in Black unity, he crossed a picket line in Harlem in front of a battery of news photographers when he felt that the Negroes were being unfair to a white restaurant owner. During World War II, he spoke in Washington at a rally put on for Paul Robeson in 1951. He gave a party for W.E.B. Du Bois on his 83rd birthday. 4 nationally known speakers, 3 Negro and 1 Jewish, promised to appear on the program and backed out after they gave the matter second thought. The New York City authorities, through devious means, tried to persuade Frazier to call off the affair, but he gave the party for Du Bois. In writing up the event the following day, one Metropolitan Daily insinuated that Frazier, because of his association with Du Bois and Robeson, was a communist. He always laughed at such foolish allegation. In fact, he had heard the charge so often he phrased a stock answer, I am a Marxist, only in so far as every scientist is a Darwinian. I make use of economic interpretation without joining any party. And then goes down to say, though never a party joiner, never a proper Negro, never a typical representative of any movement. E. Franklin Frazier was a product of the intellectual and social ferment of the 20s. His probing, challenging spirit, his unwillingness to mouth a shibboleth, and his refreshing militancy were characteristic of that era. But unlike many of his contemporaries, he was never simply a protester. Whenever he spoke out, it was from a disciplined and full mind. He was above all else a distinguished scholar and one of America's top sociologists. All right, so again, that's a story about E. Franklin Frazier. All right. So that was the story, and that was the life of Franklin E. Frazier. E. Franklin Frazier. So, yeah, someone like him and Dr. Amos Wilson and many others, they would deal with a lot of backlash and criticism because they have to go deep into the information and be able to tell it to the audience so the audience can be able to understand the subject or the points they are trying to convey. And where it was written in the article that how could he write such a book about black bourgeoisie when he's bougie himself or whatever the case may be, he said, yeah, you can say I'm bougie, but you know what? The truth is there. Where was the lie? So basically, he was telling that person who was his close friend, hey, well, where was the lie at? Where did I lie? Can't you point out the lie? And that's basically what he was saying. You can't point it out, so it's true. So yeah, he gave criticism to a lot of things. And sometimes you have to criticize your own. You have to criticize those in your circle. Even though you're part of that community, you still got to give some criticism because you got to give the harsh reality and you have to give the harsh truth about things. Just because you're a part of something doesn't mean that you're going to subscribe to every single thing or agree with everything that's going on. It doesn't always come to that point. It happens. And yes, you're going to have people that's going to hate on you. You're going to have people that's going to criticize you, demoralize you. They're going to assassinate your character, sabotage you. Whatever they're going to do, they're going to do it. And that's what happened to with E. Franklin Frazier. Many tried to assassinate his character. Many tried to demoralize him. Many tried to sabotage him because of the books that he wrote and because of the fact that he was very outspoken. All right. But anyways, you guys, that's all for today. And I thank you guys for watching. So if you want to share this video, you're more than welcome to do so. Please make sure you share the video. YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Okay? Make sure you subscribe to that channel and make sure you hit the notification bell when I'm on. All right? But anyway, this is your girl, Tiffany. I am out. Y'all have a good one. May peace and power elevation be to all of you. And I'll reconnect with you guys later. All right. Deuces.